So first, if we understand the difference between O levels and A levels, I mean, like the basic difference you would be like O levels, I studied 9 subjects, and for A levels, I only have to study 3 subjects, like excluding general English and the general knowledge paper which you have to do. If you take as subjects, it's just 3 subjects, right? So you may wonder that given that you have a lesser number of subjects, why do people say that A levels is harder than O levels? Now, the idea is that in O levels, every subject you study, you just study the surface. You don't have to get into deeper analysis of any other subjects. You just have to study the surface. They teach you a couple of basic concepts and that's it. But whatever the stream you choose in A level, that they'll give you 3 subjects and you'll have to dive deep and acknowledge, comprehend, and understand most of the concept that you have in this syllabus, and make yourself thorough with it. So that's important. So although you have a lesser number of subjects, keep in mind that it requires deeper analysis, deeper studies. So you have to be familiar with this subject as much as you can, right? So although there are 3 subjects, it requires more studies. And one of the very basic things I have to tell you that it is not an exam that you can study the last month, right? So because in O levels, most of the times that most of the students, they just study the last month and they just manage to get good results, right? But A levels is much more bulkier. Although you have 3 subjects, each subject is in terms of content, it's very bulky, right? So you cannot study the last month. Perhaps like if you are going to fail, you might be able to study the last month and make sure you pass. But of course, if you are expecting like reasonably good results, you will have to maintain your studies for throughout the time that you have, right? So apart from that, the biggest difference you have in A levels and O levels is that A levels is a competitive examination. O levels is not a competitive examination, right? Now, why would I say this? Because in O levels, whatever the result you get do not matter to anyone else. Whatever the result you get do not matter to others. Whatever the results others get do not matter to you. It's basically a self-evaluation where it just, you get what, like 6 A's, 2 B's, 4 A's, 3 B's, 1 C, or like, 2 A's, 3 B's, whatnot. Like, whatever the A's and B's and C's and S's you have, it's basically self-evaluation, and whatever the result you get has zero impact on anyone else. And whatever the results others have a zero impact on you. But A levels is a competitive exam. It's basically not a self-evaluation. It is basically a race, whereas you have to compete with others for a spot, right? It's a race, which is why every single person who sits for A levels receive a rank, a district rank or an island rank, right? So it is a matter of like, scoring more than your other competitors. Okay, so in A levels, you have to make sure that you get the maximum possible marks you can. In fact, whatever the A's and B's that you get, A's, B's, C's you get for A level subjects are actually quite secondary, because what's most important is the Z score, right? You get something called the Z score. Based on the Z score, you get ranks. You get an island rank, you get a district rank, and basically entirety of A level results depend on the Z score you get, right? Rather than the whatever the result you have, unlike O levels. O levels, you have 2 A's, 3 B's, 3 C's, whatnot. But in A levels, you get a rank, you get an Z score, and that's what matters. Okay. So with this, we have to understand that A levels is also quite important, because from O levels to A levels, when you move from O levels to A levels hardly matter when you move to A levels, because you just need a better result than a minimum of 6 C's. If you have 6 subjects where you have more than C passes, you are allowed to do A levels, which is most likely, basically like 99.9% of the students get something better than that. Like if you have something lesser than 6 C's, it's unlikely that you are a studious person or you want to continue with education, right? So anyone who sits for O levels gets a result that is better than 6Cs, and they move on to A levels. So it is not exactly a tough hurdle for you to get through. Getting 6Cs is not difficult. But when it comes to A levels is a hurdle. A levels is a hurdle. A levels is the final exam you will be doing as a school child, right? Whereas once you move on, you will be getting into the university. The next step after that is not school, it's university. So basically, A levels, advanced level, is the examination that connects your school life to your university life, right? And whether you are allowed to go to university or not is basically decided on what you get for your A levels. Now, I'm not sure what your plans are, right? Whether you are planning on going to a government university or a private university, right? If you are going to a government university, it is basically going to come down to whatever the Z score you have, right? The solitary grounds that they would take you to university is your Z score. They are going to have a cutoff mark of Z score, and if you need to get to a government university, state university, you have to have passed that Z score. There's no other way for you to get to the university, right? In other countries, of course, you can apply, you can show that that you have done sports, or you have good credentials, and the interview board decides whether to take you in or not. In Sri Lanka, it simply comes down to the fact that whatever the Z score you have is the final call. If you have Z score, you are in. If you don't have Z score, you're out. Okay. Also, it is a misconception that if you have done prefectship, if you have done sports, if you have national colors, that your Z score can be increased, boosted. Well, I mean, it's not entirely true. There's some truth to it, but it's a little complicated matter. So if you need more information, just reach out to me after the class on WhatsApp. I'll explain to you. Long story short, prefectship or extracurricular or sports or whatnot can't necessarily boost your Z score and get you to university. It comes down to your A level result. Okay. So if you are planning on going to private universities, whatever the A level result you get will be somewhat less significant, right? Because you might not need the entire Z score as much as they expect for government universities. You will be able to get through with a smaller Z score. That is all right. But of course, it's always best to put your best effort and get the best A level result you can, right? So whatever that you do in your upcoming 1 year or 2 years, depending on the 23 A levels or 24 A levels, whatever the work you're going to put into the next year or the next 2 years will decide the rest of your life, where your life is heading. Your entire higher education and your career, and of course then your personal life would depend on that. So you are at a turning point in your life, right? So I'm not saying this to put extra pressure on y'all, but you just need to realize the gravity of the examination that y'all are getting into, right? It's not like O levels where you just get a self-evaluation, you just have a few letters in your result sheet saying 2 A's, 3 B's, 5 C's, whatnot, and you just move on anyway to grade 12. This is different. This is basically, it comes down to the result you get, and your entire life changes. Now, I'll give you an example. I went to Ananda College. I did my A-levels in 2010. In our year, based on the Z score, they gave us ranks. Now I went to University of Colombo, Faculty of Law. That was the highest faculty that you could get to in the art stream, right? So in Colombo, they only took up to the 45th person, right? You have your district rank have to be above 45 in Colombo to get to the Colombo Law faculty. Whereas actually there was 6 students from Ananda College, including myself, and one of my friends, he slightly missed it. I think his Z score was slightly lower. He was the 46th in Colombo district, and that year they only took 45 to Colombo Law faculty. So he missed Colombo University because of that, because he was down by 1 rank. His Z score was That year, the cutoff mark was 1.7797, whereas his ISET score was like 1.7796. So because of that, he was ranked the 46th in Colombo district, and he had to go to University of Jaffna, right? He had to go to the law faculty in Jaffna University. I mean, that basically changed his life, like, you know, the entire, the circuit was different. Like, you know, he started speaking Tamil, and he started, like, you know, working with the Jaffna court circuit and all that. He's a lawyer today, but of course, that 0.001 completely changed, like, you know, his entire university life. He could have, if he came to Colombo, or now he went to Jaffna, like, you know, that completely changed the circuits that he had to work with, right? So it's quite crucial what you get in A levels. So it's always important to put your best shot, right? That doesn't mean that you are not allowed to have fun, like, you know, you're teenagers, you're like children. So it's okay, just, you know, have friends, enjoy life, like, you know, you have social media, Netflix, YouTube, whatnot, like the things that you'll spend time with your generation. It's all right, but always keep in mind that you make sure that studies always get a priority, right? If you do prefectship or like extracurricular activities or sports, but studies should always be number one, right? Because these 2 years or 1 year is going to be quite crucial. Okay, now I am not someone who's like, you know, who's completely motivating people to be nerds, like, you know, don't do extracurricular, don't have fun, don't have friends, don't do sports, and like, you know, do studies only. Because I myself, I am a debating coach. I am the debating coach for St. Peter's College, Muslim Ladies College, Ilma International Girls School, Gateway College, Colombo, Anand Balika. So all those schools, I am their debating coach. I'm the coach of the debating team. I used to do sports back then, right? But always, like, even when I was studying, my priority was always studies, especially when it comes to A levels, right? So you have to take A levels a little serious than O levels, right? Because given that you all are coming to A levels from O levels, that's something that you have to be very clear with. Then, apart from that, you have to sort of figure out the subjects. Now, in A levels, the calculation of Z scores, now there is a complex mathematical system to calculate the Z score, but to me, I can just simplify it for you. Basically, to get good Z scores, you have to score well in hard subjects, right? You have to pick subjects which are hard, and you have to score well in those. That's how you get a higher Z score, right? So if you get a subject which is relatively easy, where everyone scores well, you scoring well for that subject won't get you that big of an Z score, right? So it is quite tricky that you have to pick a subject that is difficult. Like, a lot of people should fail that subject and you should score well, right? Harder the subject is, the score you get is going to be more crucial. Now, I'll give you an example. For example, you take a subject like English literature. It's considered as a subject that gives you a higher Z score, right? If you take a subject like drama, drama is a subject that gives you a lower Z score. So, which means that if you get a C, if you get a C for literature, that C would give you a higher Z score than an A for drama, right? Getting an A for drama is going to give you a lesser Z score than getting a C for literature, because literature subject everyone fails. Like, a lot of students fail that subject. A lot of students get S for that subject. So if you try hard for the literature paper and you get a C, right, and that C can get you the Z score, a larger Z score than getting an A for like a relatively easy subject, right? So the easiest way to figure out what sort of an Z score that your subject has, you just have to figure out whether it's known as an easy subject or a difficult subject, right? So basically, political science, econ, logic, geography, history, or the languages, English literature, French. These are the subjects that relatively has a higher Z score, right? Like, you take like literature and French, they are like extremely high. whereas political science, economics, they are also reasonably high. Then you have logic, GRC. Those subjects are like in the bottom part of the higher Z score subjects. Okay, like that. I got a DM. So what about the Z score in the commerce stream subjects? There's nothing to worry about commerce stream subjects because basically we are talking about econ and business studies and accounts, right? So if you think according to the common sense, a lot of people who do commerce stream do not get good results, right? Like a lot of people are there in schools, they are just doing commerce because they need a stream to sit in. So a lot of people fail in the commerce stream throughout the country. So because of that, econ, accounts, business studies have relatively a good DZ score. So that is not a problem. Okay, right. Getting another. Sir, can I do? Okay, I don't want to read out the names of the subjects because, like, I don't want to sound like bad mouthing about subjects. I can do. Can I do one subject? All right, right. Okay. So basically, this is not about DZ score, so I can read out the subjects. Can I do communication and media studies, ICT, and English Lit for A levels with the aim of doing law in Colombo University? Right. Yes, of course, not a problem. Basically, you can go to Colombo University as long as you have a district rank above. Now, back in my day, it was a little difficult because, as I told you, they only took 45 people from Colombo, and even my friend who got 46 couldn't get through. But now I think the total is higher. I think last year they took around 85 or 86 from Colombo. So you have to make sure that your district rank is within the first 80 in Colombo. It's not that hard, to be honest. Like, you make it sound like an island rank is difficult. But back in my day, I'm like not talking your generation down, but back in my day, people were more study oriented, to be honest. Like, it's not necessarily because we were smarter, I guess, but we had lesser opportunities. Like, we didn't have a lot of private universities like nowadays. We didn't have a lot of opportunities to go abroad right after, studies, whatnot. So because of that, there was a lot of competition to get into the government universities. So because of that, we had a huge competition, and getting a district rank was much harder. But now the competition is little lower. People have other options, so not everyone targets these. So because of that, getting into the first 80 in the Colombo district, sort of like okay. What about English communication and media? Yeah, sure, that works too. Islam, political science, and BS. Yes, of course. Islam is also another subject that has a good DZ score. Business studies anyway has a good DZ score. In fact, last year, one student, the best student I had, she was from Ilma. Her name was Sarah. She was from Ilma International Girls School. She was the best result I had in last year's batch, and her subjects were Islam, political science, and English Lit. And in fact, she had a C for English Lit and A for Islam and political science. Still, she had a really high Z score because, as I told you, English Lit. Even if you get a C, that generates a good result. So basically, guys, as long as political science has a high Z score, yes, because it's relatively difficult. It's relatively a difficult subject. So difficult the subject is, Z score is higher. All right. So there are subjects that are known as higher Z score subjects and lower Z score subjects. Political science is somewhere in the middle of higher Z score subjects. I would always recommend you to do subjects like political science, logic, econ, geography, right? Not the subjects that are like, really high in Z score, because they are really high because how difficult the subject is, right? Because a lot of people fail. You don't want to do the subject and get a lower score. So do a subject that others normally fail, but you are capable of getting a better result. When I'm applying to universities, is there a problem regarding these subjects? No, not an issue. In fact, as I told you, as long as you have a district rank above 80 in Colombo district, you can apply for Colombo University Faculty of Law, right? There are a couple of subjects that are not allowed. The performance art subjects you can't. Like if you have done art, music, or dancing, you can't, right? Unless you have done one of those subjects, you can't. I mean, some people find this to be discriminatory, like if you've done music, you can't go to the law faculty. It's because those subjects are subjective. When it comes to music practicals, dancing practicals, someone observes how you play, someone observes how you dance, or someone observes what you draw and give you a mark. And that is not something you can control with a marking scheme, right? So one can say that one can draw like a really bad picture, and the other, like, some examiner can give it like full marks. Like there's no control over it, which is why you can't go to law faculty if you've done art or music or dancing, because the subjects are too subjective, which are not controlled by a marking scheme. Apart from that, basically anyone can, even people who've done maths, bio, commerce for A levels can still apply for law faculty, right? So that's not a problem. As long as you have the Z score, as long as you have the what do you call it? The rank, this district rank, you can get to the law faculty. There is no problem. Okay. Right. So now again, since I actually got a lot of questions about going to the law faculty, I believe some of y'all are planning on pursuing law as your career, right? Pursuing a career in law. Now, of course, to introduce myself, I am an attorney at law, so I am a lawyer. I went to the Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, to get my law degree, and I got my attorneys from Colombo, Sri Lanka Law College, and I got my master's degree from Canadian University on political science, right? So if there is anyone who's planning on pursuing law, right, this going to the law faculty it's just the first option you have. Other than that, you have several other options. You can try Kotalawala Defence University, KDU. You can try Open University Sri Lanka. You can directly go to Sri Lanka Law College, or there are private universities that you will have to spend some amount for private universities. If you can afford, you can try somewhere like APIT, Royal Institute, CFPS, those places. Or if you can't afford a lot of money, a big price, then you can try places like IDM. I have worked with all these places. So apart from teaching you political science, if you are planning on pursuing a career in law, that I'll be able to give you career guidance, and you can use my contacts in that sense as well, right? So by the time you're done with A levels, if you are in need of pursuing law, you can contact me. I can help you out that way as well. Okay, right. So speaking of the subject that we are going to study, political science, how is it useful? How is it useful to you, right? Now, of course, as I told you, I don't want to be sounding like bad mouthing subjects, but there are, so I won't be mentioning some names of the subjects, but there are some subjects that are not going to be useful after you study that for A levels. You study that for A levels, you will do the paper, and you'll just move on in life, and it won't be useful ever again, right? So can I enter law faculty without being talkative? Of course. Of course, there's nothing, all right, so I guess I have to clarify that part. Now, being a lawyer has this misconception that to become a lawyer, that you have to be very talkative, and you should be able to argue. And that's because when you say a lawyer, what you picture is someone who argues in a courthouse, what you see in these movies and TV shows and all of that, right? But in fact, it's less than 5% of the lawyers who actually go to the courts and actually speak. Now, I myself, I do that. That's because I sort of am capable of, being talkative and all that. Debating is my thing. I coach debating. So I have a way of speaking. I have my way of speaking. So because of that, I practice in courts. But I belong to less than 5%. If it's necessary, I don't have to even speak. Even when it comes to certain court cases, you don't even have to speak once, because you'll have to speak in courts if you are practicing something like criminal law or family law, where witnesses come and you have to question the witnesses and all that. But of course, there are other things like fundamental rights petitions and all that. It's all documented. It's in some courthouses, say a court of appeal or Supreme Court, mostly it's based on the documents. You don't even have to speak. So it's all based on documents. And other than that, you don't even have to go to courts. There are so many job opportunities in the legal field which doesn't require saying a single word. For example, deed work. You can write deeds and charge for that, right? Lawyers write deeds. Now, for example, one of my friends, his dad is one of the prominent lawyers in Colombo who does all this deed work. Now, normally when a lawyer does the paperwork for a deed, his fee or his or her fee is 1% of the value of the property that what they are writing, right? So my friend's dad does all these super expensive lands in Colombo. I remember when I was in first year in university, he was telling me that his dad did one deed right next to the Torrington, like Independence Square, right? And it was the land itself was 200 million rupees at that time in 2011. 200 million rupees, and his fee alone was 2 million. All he had to do was just typing out the deed, right? All he had to do was typing out the deed and just certifying, putting his seal and certifying, and his fee was just 2 million. So he told me like he writes like one deed in 3 months, 4 months, and that's all he does. Like his job is basically doing a deed every 2-3 months, and that's good enough for him to live the entire year. And you don't have to speak a single word. So there's documentation work, and companies hire legal officers. All you have to do is just going through their documents and to see whether the documents are in order in terms of the law, right? So being a lawyer actually has very little to do with speaking, right? So if you are good in speaking, you can try out, but that's optional. You don't have to do much. And especially getting into the law faculty or like going to the Columbia University law faculty, simply what it requires is getting the Z score. You are just going there as a university student. It's similar to going to any other university. Okay. So you don't have to have any speaking skills for that. So that's perfectly fine. All right. So the legal profession has plenty of and when I tell you that when you see people like lawyers speaking in courthouses, that's just 5%. Now, if that is 5%, you can imagine how many other job opportunities out there, right? So do not hesitate to pursue the legal career because that you are not good at communicating verbally, right? Because that's a very small part. It's a little exaggerated. When you say a lawyer, people are like, okay, they speak a lot, they lie. That's another misconception, that the lawyers have to lie, right? That's a conversation for a whole other day, right? Those are just misconceptions. It has nothing to do with speaking. So it's a good profession. If you are interested in taking part, let me know. I can help you out. Okay, right. Now, the subject political science is specifically important because this is something that you will learn for life, right? It is not a subject that you will just study until A levels and then you'll do the paper and you'll forget about it, right? It is a subject that will help you to become a better citizen. Okay. Now, another thing that you have to sort of like completely get out of your system. And if you see someone misinterpreting it this way, you have to go there and correct it. Political science and politics are completely two different things. One of the reasons I normally hear some of the students tell me that they want to do political science for A levels, but their families are not okay with doing that because they think politics is just too dirty and it's rotten and like people don't respect politicians. Like I don't want my child becoming a politician or getting involved in politics. It's dangerous. It's disgusting, right? I just want my child to do like a decent job. Now, the point is, political science has nothing to do with politics, right? If you do politics, you become a politician. If you study political science, you become a political scientist. Okay. So what you're doing here is you're just studying the theories about politics, how it works, and it has no ties to, not even a crossover with actual politics, right? So if you want to do politics, doing political science is not even necessary. I mean, do you think the people we have in the parliament and all that, like they have studied political science? I doubt they have studied anything at all in their lives. I doubt whether they've gone to schools in the first place, right? They are that uneducated. So people who have actually studied political science, they are in universities, they are the ones who's like, actually like, keeping the country sane, like keeping the country in the right track. um, Studying political science doesn't mean you have to do politics at one point, and doing politics doesn't mean you have to have studied political science at one point. No connection whatsoever, right? So what you are doing is that studying political science, it is an academic study and it has nothing to do with actual politics. But of course, when you have studied political science as a subject, politicians cannot trick you, right? Because politicians like to trick people. They like to trick people to get their votes and like, get their work done. But when you have studied political science, they can't trick you. And that is going to be very handy, right? Because whenever a politician comes up and like, lies to sort of like freak you out and sort of like give you the wrong idea about something so that you would vote for them, if you are someone who has studied political science, you know what they're talking about. You know that they're lying, right? You become a smart citizen. You become a smart citizen and you make smart choices in elections, right? As a country, if Sri Lanka needs to be developed as a country, I think we sort of need to make political science more prominent. Right now, I personally believe, this is just my personal opinion, I think we have to have political science and law, both. Two things I'm involved in, right? Politics, political science, and law. Both of that should be taught before A levels. That's just my belief. I personally think this way that people get divided into streams, and even in the art stream, only some people pick political science. And law, you don't get to study unless that you are pursuing law as a profession. But I think if we teach children political science and law in middle school from grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, everyone will have an idea about like, how politics work, the theories in politics, and how the law works. And we are going to have a much more aware, a smart group of citizens in the country, and our country will be better off that way. But I guess that is the very reason the politicians do not want to do that. The reason politicians keep political science as a mediocre subject and keep law away from like, schools and keep it only open for university students is because they prefer having a less smart population so they can manipulate them and get the votes, right? So you are going to be one of the smart citizens of the country. You will make right political decisions. You won't be tricked by politicians and their propaganda because you are going to be a smart citizen, right? And you will never support something that harms the country or supports the um, any harm or corruption in the country. You will never approve things like corruption and all that. Like even when other people will be like, it's okay, corruption is something normal, politicians steal anyway, but like, you will respect your principles. You will know how harmful certain things are for the country, and you are going to be a good citizen. Apart from being a smart citizen, if you have studied political science, you will be a good citizen. You will never support something that harms the country, right? Then of course it's going to give you a huge, vast uh, amount of knowledge, right? Large knowledge as a person. um, you will learn so much about rights and duties. You will learn about democracy. You will learn about how the state works, how the governments work, how international politics work, right? So that way that you are going to be a smart person, you are going to be someone who knows these things. And one thing that I've learned or I've heard from my students over the years that I've been teaching, that they tell me that when they first started political science, that they hear their dads and uncles, how our family gatherings are, how our dads and uncles, they get together and uncles get together and how they talk about politics. Like, I was so confused about what they talk about, I can't even relate to. But now of course, like after you finish A levels, by the time you do 2 years or 1 year in the political science class, after that you can actually have a conversation with them. You can actually correct them sometimes when they are wrong, and like, that shows you how much knowledge that you have gathered. So apart from that general um, kind of knowledge that you gather from the subject, it is going to give you a lot of professional knowledge as well. Now we already discussed about how important political science is for a law student. You learn about constitutions, you learn about like how the judicial system works in a country, how the law works in a country, like, you learn a lot. But of course, apart from that, additionally, we can also see that you you get a lot of knowledge for other professions as well. Now, if you study political science, apart from law, you have other options. You can try foreign service, international relations, right? You can work in embassies, like, in high commission officers, like those international relation jobs. And there are opportunities in UN, like Commonwealth, these international organizations. You can work there in the foreign service. You can work in the administration. All these places we have called the divisional secretariat office, district secretariat office, right? The administration of the country. That's actually a good place to work at, right? And even when it comes to teaching, right? Teaching itself, it will help you if you are planning on becoming a teacher someday. This knowledge is going to be quite useful. All right. Apart from that, specifically when it comes to A levels, as it was asked by me earlier, A levels is based on the Z score, right? Z score, and of course, A levels, political science has a higher Z score, right? So that is also going to be useful. Apart from that, studying political science specifically helps if you are pursuing law, because some of the subjects you come across in political science, such as constitutional law, then administration law, international, public international law, right? These kind of subject, international humanitarian law, human rights law, these kind of several subjects you have to study as a law student. You will get the basic knowledge you need from this political science course, right? So if you have chosen political science as your subject, it was a very smart choice, right? One of the best decisions you made in your life, and you are off to a good start in your A levels, right? Okay, so with that, we'll take a small break, right? Like 5 minutes break, 5-10 minutes break, and we'll proceed back at 8:30. And after that, I will explain about how the syllabus is fixed and how the papers are there, and what is our normal procedure of covering this, right? Until then, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box. You can DM me if you have questions. And we'll proceed back at 8:30. Right. Okay. So a couple of questions that I got. How can I join the class permanently? Of course, you will have to contact college for that. So you can see the contact number in the chat box, like discuss it with them. Whatever that is happening with classes, of course, payment of fees and all of that has to be done through the school, like through the college. Let them know. Of course, asking what are the ideal subjects we should do if we are doing law. I mean, to be honest, like whatever the subjects would work, as I told you, even to get to the law faculty, people who do math, science, and commerce also come into law facs, and it's not a problem. But of course, if you go with ideal subjects, I would say political science is number one, right? Political science is the most ideal, the subject that goes closest. Other than that, I would say econ. Econ would be a good subject. Logic, geography. Apart from that, history, GRC, Greek Rome civilization, and all of that. Those are not exactly related. I would say the subjects that are closely related to law would be political science, econ, logic, geography, and history up to a certain extent. Greek Rome civilization would also be good. Won't have a direct connection with law, but of course, that will sort of like get you used to the way how law exams normally work. Other than that, I would say Islam, English Lit, French, those subjects. Lot of students do those subjects and they get good EZ scores, right? I mean, I normally don't do this, but like, to mention subjects that has a lower EZ score, I mean, it's not like I'm telling you not to do these subjects, but just notifying you that these subjects have relatively a lower EZ score. So if you have one of these subjects in your subject combination, make sure that you have two subjects that have a higher Z score. That, of course, if you have plans to get to government university, if you are going to private universities, it's fine. You can do an easier subject and get, it's all matter of like, getting a good result. That's all. But if you are planning on getting a higher Z score and uh, trying it out to government universities, several subjects like say Sinhala. Sinhala has relatively higher now, but it can be a little lower at times. GRC is also in the lower part of the higher Z score group. Higher Z score subject group, it's in the lower part. Arabic, if you are doing Arabic, Arabic has a relatively lower Z score. Islam is fine. Islam and Islam civilization, those subjects have a good Z score. I doubt, looking at the crowd, I doubt Buddhist civilization is a concern for you all. But if you have any friends, tell them Buddhist civilization has a lower Z score, but Buddhism has a higher Z score. Again, divinity, that is Christianity and Catholicism, also have relatively a lower Z score. Ideally, Islam is the religion. Islam and Hinduism are the two religion subjects that has relatively a high Z score. But Catholicism, Christianity, which is divinity, and Buddhist civilization has relatively a lower Z score because a lot of students do that and they are familiar with the content, especially divinity, because people who do divinity, they have been going to church, they have been studying the Bible, so everyone scores well, which brings the Z score down. But Buddhism has a higher Z score. In terms of Islam has a higher Z score. Islamic civilization also has a higher Z score. Arabic has a relatively lower Z score, which sort of doesn't make sense. Why? I don't know. Maybe Muslims speak Arabic well, I'm assuming. So apparently everyone who does Arabic gets a good result. Or maybe the papers are easier. I don't know, could be. So anyways, though if you have, and also another common subject is media, right? If you are doing media is relatively an easier subject, which sort of compromises your Z score, but it's easy. It's an easy subject. So if you do media, that's sort of like not going to be a headache. Media is not a subject that will be a headache at any point. It's a very capable subject that you can, even the last few months, that you can go through that and get it done. But of course, that nature has sort of like compromised Z score a little bit. So if you have media in your combination, make sure that you pick two subjects that have a higher Z score. Apart from that, other than that, what do we have? ICT has a higher Z score. ICT is fine, right? So again, it's a matter of like doing common sense thinking, figuring out which subjects are harder, which subjects are easier. Manageable subjects are always going to be a little lower in terms of Z score, right? Harder the subject is, higher the Z score is. But again, really hard subjects, very difficult to manage. So maybe pick something in the middle, which is why I would say ideally I would recommend Econ, political science, logic, geography, history, and all. Like those are the subjects I would recommend. It's okay to do like two subjects in higher Z score and one subject in lower. Now, for example, in my combination, when I did A-levels in 2010, my combination actually had a lower Z score subject. That was Sinhala. I did Sinhala, political science and logic for my A-levels. Political science and logic had a higher Z score. Sinhala had a lower Z score. It was okay because I scored well in political science and logic. I knew that can catch up for what I'm losing from Sinhala. It just, I wanted to teach and I wanted to write books. I want to write books in Sinhala, so I wanted to learn Sinhala because I want to be fluent in the be thorough with the language. So knowing that it's gonna compromise Z score a little bit, I still went ahead and did the subject. But again, that was okay because I already had two other subjects that would catch up for whatever I was losing that. Okay, right. So I hope that clears up all the questions you had about like subject combinations and subjects and career. But of course, you guys can reach out to me on WhatsApp. I'll just put my contact here, right? Oh, sorry. This is my contact number. You can contact me on WhatsApp. And if you have any other clarifications about subjects or like, legal profession, whatnot, you can reach out to me. But of course, if you want to join the class or continue with the class fees and stuff, those you'll have to contact college. Okay, so they are the ones who's like organizing this. That of course have to be discussed with them. Anything other than that, I can help you out. English language is at scope. All right, first of all, you don't have a separate subject called English language. It goes as English literature, right? English literature has two papers, as the language paper and the literature paper. Okay, so basically you get one language. It is called English, right? It's called English, and that has a language paper and a literature paper that has a really high Z score. That actually has a really high Z score because that's a tough subject. That is a really tough subject, which is why I told you if you get a C for English literature, that is sort of equal to getting an A for Arabic, right? So it carries the same weight. And in fact, in the entire country, you have about like 2 or 3 A's for the entire country. Ideally, like if you get an A for English lit, that means an island rank is certain. I remember in 2006 or 2005, one of those years when I was in school, I remember Island first in the art stream had a C for econ. 2 A's and a C, right? That student had 2 A's and a C. I think she was a girl from ladies college. 2 A's and a C, C for econ and A for political science and A for literature. So having an A for literature would trump everything else, and that gave her a really high Z score. So she ended up being island first, having 2 A's and a C, and she passed so many people who had 3 A's. So and having a C for econ didn't compromise much because she already had an A. So English literature, yes, it has a very high Z score. But of course, again, if you are doing English lit, make sure that it is a subject you can manage, right? Because it requires language skills. You have to write those like essays and criticisms and all that. So make sure you can handle that. Okay, all right. Right. So the subject we have is political science. So it is high in Z score. So we've clarified that already. It is helpful for your future. It is helpful for your legal career. It is helpful for your other careers. It gives you other career opportunities. It makes you smart. It makes you a smart citizen. It makes you a good citizen, right? So now that is like clarified, let's see what we have to study in political science. Now in our syllabus in political science, starting from 2019, right? Starting from 2019, our subject of political science basically has 15 units. Okay, 15 units. It's like units as in like they are like lessons, but like a collection of lessons. So I would say like there are 15 units. Under each unit you have different lessons. There are 15 units, 8 units to be taught in 8 units to be taught in grade 12 and 7 units to be taught in grade 13. Okay, so but of course in my classes I don't go in that same order as the units are. Like I don't start from unit 1 and 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 and up to 12. I don't go up to 15. I don't go like that. I have a special way of like picking units depending on the connection these units have with one another. Now for example, unit 5, 5th unit, is a unit that I do last in the syllabus. I do it very late because the reason is that what you study in unit 5 is something that you've already studied in unit 2 3 4. Unit 1 2 3 4, you already study what's there in 5. So there's no point in wasting time restudying what we've already done. So instead, after unit 4, we jump to unit 7. That is my way of teaching. I normally teach unit 1 2 3 4 7 8 and then 12, because those are the most important units. The moment you finish 1 2 3 4 7 8 and 12, those particular units, you can get a C. Basically, when you're done with those, you can get a C for political science. You go and you do the A-level paper, you can get a C, right? The remaining units are the ones that helps you to rise beyond a C, to get to a B, to get to an A, right? So to get the base sorted first, we normally study unit 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go to 7, 8, and then we go to 12, right? So the most important units. Those units are enough for you to get a C, or like if you do really well, you can even get a B with those units, right? Those 7 units. The remaining 8 units are just like, add-ons, right? So that's how we normally follow the syllabus, right? That's how we normally figure it out. Now, of course, for 2023 students, I will be going a little fast. If there are 23 students here, I will be relatively going a little fast because that is needed. You have about a year, right? You have about 1 year to, get everything sorted. So because of that, we have to go fast. Basically, it will be a revision, right? It will be a revision class that I'm doing for the students that I already have. And it's going to be fast. I'm starting from the beginning for both batches, okay? But of course, it is going to be a system where that we go relatively a little faster, pacing up. 24 students, of course, you have 2 years, which means that we can take our time, break down lessons one by one and all that. And so it won't be an issue. So we have time. But 23 students, you have some catching up to do. So we will be going a little faster. But the order is the same, right? It's always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 12, then 6, 11, then 13, 14, 15, and coming back to 5, 9, and 10, right? That is the order of order that I normally cover the syllabus, all right? Apart from that, if you're continuing with my class, you will have to use basic notes. One of the other issues that you have in A-levels is that you don't get notes, right? You do not get notes, right? So now, for example, for A-levels, that you don't have proper notes to study, right? Which has led several students to sort of like think that you have to study the teacher's guide. Now, this is something again told by some of the teachers, some of the school teachers, because A-level students, English medium students, do not have proper notes, and the teachers you have available are incompetent of making a note on their own. They normally say that you have to study the teacher's guide. They are overly dependent on the teacher's guide because they are incapable of making their own notes. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know whether you are doing A-levels private or whether you're doing A-levels through school, but if anyone tells you at any point that, you have to study the teacher's guide, I mean, that's not how it works. Teacher's guide, the word is teacher's guide. It's not a textbook, it's a teacher's guide, right? It's there for the teacher to have a guidance as to be what to be taught. It's not for the students to study. If you go through the teacher's guide, you will see it is actually quite confusing because it doesn't elaborate any other points. They just give you like short points. So the teacher has an idea what needs to be taught. The reason teachers are dependent on the teacher's guide and they tell the students to study the teacher's guide is because it's simply because they are incapable of making their own notes, right? So for this issue that I have written 4 textbooks, right? I have written 4 textbooks with extended notes with a proper explanation. So if you study those textbooks, that is good enough. That has like the proper explanation. Even if you study that, if you read that at home, even if you don't come to the class, that is good enough, right? Now, you don't have to buy these textbooks. I didn't write these to be sold. You can download them from my website. The PDF versions are available. If you are continuing with my classes, those will be the textbooks that I normally refer to. You'll have to download the textbooks and get them printed, right? You'll have to get a printout and get the printout, what do you call this? Just bind it. Print it out and bind it, right? So then you can use it as a book. All right. So of course, the website is it's the academyofpoliticalscience.com. right? This is the website. So you can go there and you can download the textbooks. Apart from that, the Academy of Political Science also has a YouTube channel. I have uploaded some of my old webinars and seminars there. So in case that if you need to, re-study something, if you need any lesson to be if you need like a recap of a particular lesson, that you can head over to this YouTube channel and check it out. Okay, let me see if I could get you the website link as well. You can just search for the Academy of Political Science on YouTube and you'll come across that. Right? My internet is a little slow, but once I get the link, I will put it in the chat. Okay, I'm not sure if what I just dropped here works. So let me just put this as a link. All right, so this is a link to the website, so you can check it out. So you can download the textbooks from the library page. There is one page called the library. There you can find the textbooks and some of my videos as well.